Welcome back to St. Lawrence and Atlantic Locomotive Profiles. This episode, we're going to be taking a look at one of the visitors to the railroad. Quebec-Gatineau Railway 6904. 6904 started out life as Canadian National SD40 number 5202. The 5202 had a relatively uneventful career on the Canadian National, the only changes being the movement of the horn and the addition of ditch lights. The 5202 would remain on Canadian National until the mid-1990s, when she was sent out for a rebuild and returned as GCFX 6034. At this point in time, the 5202 had a Nathan K3L air horn. The 6034 was classified as an SD40-3. Now some of you younger rail fans might be saying, that doesn't look like an SD40-3. But SD40-3 refers to the electronic system inside the locomotive. One interesting note is the 6034 and her sisters at GCFX were never -2s. They were all rebuilt to -3 specifications. After a few years of being on GCFX, the 6034 would be sold back to Canadian National and renumbered as Wisconsin Central 6904. On GCFX, 6034 would retain its Nathan K3L. And it's around this time, the locomotive begins to look a little bit more familiar to us. Except for the paint scheme, the locomotive would remain relatively unchanged. That is, except the horn. It was around this time on the Wisconsin Central that the locomotive would acquire its now iconic and unmistakable Nathan P5. In 2010, Quebec-Gatineau Railway would acquire the 6904 from Canadian National. For the first couple years of 6904 being on Quebec-Gatineau, it was really difficult to tell whose locomotive it was. Then Genesee, Wyoming decided to fix that. The locomotive was partially repainted into the GCFX paint scheme, but with Quebec-Gatineau Railway reporting marks under the cab. The locomotive would remain with just Quebec-Gatineau reporting marks until just a year later in 2013. In 2013, the locomotive would finally receive G&W branding. 6904 and her sisters were unique, as they only got G&W logos on the nose of the locomotive. This would result in the GCFX paint scheme remaining completely intact. 6904 would be on QGRY for 3 more years, and the locomotive was still proudly wearing its Nathan P5. '6904 is the first locomotive included in the series that I caught on its arrival to the railroad. Here is the video.
SD40 does too.
And here we are in the present day. 6904 usually runs the southward turn between Richmond and Montreal, Quebec. The SD40s are normally used on this run as the train needs to top out at 60 miles an hour to keep up with the Canadian National timetable. Regardless of where she is on the St. Lawrence and Atlantic system, it's unmistakable when you have 6904 on the head end of the train because of that iconic Nathan P5 air horn. Now 6904 has an interesting story with me specifically. When I tried catching this locomotive leading a train on the St. Lawrence and Atlantic, it took me almost 3 years. But when it finally happened, the reaction I had was priceless. Here's the recording of when it happened. And that's enough of that. Yeah. Okay. Have a good day.